Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This is
Hello,
Sherman,
this is Amaya.
and today we have some good topics for you. Amaya had the last topic. This is my topic this week, and I thought
Mhm.
it would be great for us to just take a trip down memory lane, get a little bit deep about family values and what that means to us. I think we should, first of all, Amaya, how have you been? It's
I
been a
have been
week.
good. Yeah, I've been good. It's been a pretty good week. How have you been?
I've been great. This has been a good week relaxing, living my best
Hmm.
life and stuff like that. So it's not bad. I've just been like it's crazy cuz summer is over and I feel like I
Hmm.
immediately felt like this entire week has been in like the 70s. So it's been a lot
Yeah.
cooler and then at night it gets like really like chill, not cold, but it gets like it's not as hot. So it's
Hmm.
weird walking outside and like not being like sweating, just like feel the chill in the breeze, but I've been good. Um, so yeah, I've been great, and
Yeah.
we're gonna
I
just
get
get
that though,
started.
because fall is about to start. It's the cozy
Mm,
weather. I'm excited.
you're gonna be in a lot of laying in the grass and enjoying the weather.
Uh-huh, sure.
Oh,
No
you're not,
laying in the
but you
grass
go
for
out.
me.
Y'all go hiking and go outdoors
Oh
all the
yeah,
time.
but I don't just lay in grass. Animals pee out there.
Well, clearly you take a towel on Maya. This is you've
Oh,
seen
okay. Yeah, yeah,
movies.
of
You're not just laying in
course.
the bare. Then again, in Germany, in some movies, they do just be laying in the bare grass.
They do. I'm like, no, let an ant crawl on me. I'm
So,
gonna start crying.
oh my god. Okay. So with family values, I think we should start just by talking about what is our definition of family
Mhm.
values. There is the default definition you can look up. By all means, you can do that. But I think it's good to
Mhm.
get people's perspectives because we're not by any means professionals. We don't have degrees in family or family
We just
values
have
or
lived
psychology.
experiences.
Yeah, lived
That's it.
experience. That's what our podcast is about. It's everything we experience through our lives and we just regurgitate it in a way in which we just have conversations about it. So, what
Hmm.
is your definition of family values or your understanding from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to trying to define family, everyone does define it differently. I know some people define it as your blood relatives, a mother and father have a baby and
Mm-hmm.
their descendants and all of that, and then people who you are biologically connected to. For me personally, that's kind of how I view family, but not because I am adopted. So I have relatives who are not blood related to me, but they feel more like my family than my actual blood family in some ways. I don't know if that makes sense, but like I have obviously a more deep connection with the people who adopted me than the people who I actually came from.
Yeah.
And I think even in that definition of it, I still think I have even more family than that. Like, I think you and Justin are definitely a part of my family. Y'all are my maid family now. Like,
Oh.
as I'm as I'm getting older and things, I think you start to make your own family, and that can look any possible way. And so I think of you guys truly as family.
Oh, thank you. We feel the exact same way. I will say that family for me, the definition from my perspective is it's a combination of chosen and a combination of blood. But I think
Hmm.
it's more about the emotional connection and
Yeah.
just the connection you have with each individual person. Because, of course, like you said, there's the biological. There's my parents, my mom and dad. I'm a junior, so my name is Sherman Jr. And then
Hmm.
there's my biological dad and my biological mom who basically are my everything. There's always this, I feel like there's this anchor that pulls me back to my
Hmm.
parents. And it's because they are good people and they lived lives where they were very involved. And my dad and mom
Hmm.
called me like every other day. So
Oh, wow.
my
That's
lived
awesome.
oh, thank you. My lived experience just put in perspective for me that family is a combination of both. Plus, being part of the LGBTQ community, once you become
Hmm.
of age and get out in the world alone, you start to learn a lot about that chosen family
Yeah.
because if your family's not accepting of your sexuality or whatever choice you make in life, whether it's career choice, whether it's just
Hmm.
you want to be a dancer and not a doctor, so it's interesting to see how family values change from person to person. So my values have always just been a combination of chosen and blood relation. and of course the connection that I just have with the people in my life. So that's kind of what family values mean to me, and it can vary and it can be hard sometimes because family can do things to you that might,
Hmm.
you know,
And no one else can. Like
yeah,
they know how to hurt you in different ways than
that
anyone else that you could just meet on the street. Like your family, they know you better than anyone else. So,
I agree. So let's I think the best talking point that I wanted to start from was parents because that's where it all starts. They're the ones that conceive you,
mhm.
kinda, and they're the ones that put you into the world or raise you, whichever
Yeah.
one, whether it's biological or adopted.
Hmm.
Parents, that's where I kind of want to start. Like, what was your life like growing up, watching your parents, seeing that relationship, and how did that
Hmm.
impact your values for family?
I think growing up, like I'm gonna talk about my adoptive parents throughout this, and I'm just gonna call them my parents, but just so you know who what lens I'm looking at this
Mm-hmm.
through. So, when I was a little kid, I was like, oh, I have two parents, they got married, they have five kids. It's a big blended thing. And so I was just like, this is amazing and so much love. And then once I started to become more conscious and understanding actual love and deep relationships, I kind of started to notice that something wasn't right with my
Mm,
parents' relationship. They would argue a lot when we were younger. They disagreed on a lot of things. And when, I was about 10 or 12, I can't remember. I might have been younger than that actually. But when I was younger, but also already there in my mind, they got separated because they just had way too many marital issues and they were going to get divorced and then they ended up getting back together. And then after that, I realized they don't even hug or kiss each other. There was no intimacy in their
mm,
relationship. And so I think that was it's a lot different than growing up in a family where your parents love each other so much. Like my parents, they were like, okay, we're here, we have a family, so we're gonna stick it out. And I always would joke with my sisters like, haha, they're gonna wait until we all graduate college or go off to college, and then they're gonna separate and be like, yeah, we knew this was happening. And I would be like, yeah, I knew too, because y'all don't do anything together that is even close to a relationship. And then plans got a little fast tracked
mm.
and they ended up getting divorced my freshman year of college.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. That
I'm not.
oh well, I mean, okay,
I
okay. To be fair, some you were in college, so you were at
Yeah.
you were older, and you said you saw signs of like not
Mm-hmm.
having intimacy and like something was missing. So,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting because sometimes kids can pick up on things that parents think they're really good at hiding.
Right.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I know what I'm doing. They won't know if we don't do this. But
Yeah, they
like,
can't
kids are very
tell.
smart. They even though they don't have a reference point sometimes, they still can tell the energy is off.
Right. And
Okay.
I think a lot of parents underestimate that in their kids. And I don't know. I think with my parents, they were just like, "Oh my God, you guys knew." Yeah. And like now I talk to my mom about it. She's like, "I still can't believe you guys realized it because I didn't even realize it." I said, "How?"
And people and
But
parents, adults will always say stuff like, "I'm gonna stick in it for the kids." Like, we gotta look. But
yes,
like, I feel like you're hurting the kids more when
you
you
are.
when you create this false and fake and toxic and sometimes traumatic environment where you're living with someone you don't really love or care to be with,
Hmm.
but you're saying you're doing it for the kids, and then the kids low key know what's going on, and it's just like, well, am I supposed to stay with someone if I don't love them because it's the
That's what
right
they
thing to
did,
do.
and you stick it out because that's what my parents did. And why want a different kind of relationship when that's all you've seen, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll talk about my biological parents. They're still together.
Mm-hmm.
They've been together for more than 40 years now. My brother's 40 years old, so you do the math. But I'm not putting nobody's business out there.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So I will say watching my parents growing up was a very interesting experience. Of course, I grew up Christian. Both of my parents are Christian.
Hmm.
You can choose whatever denomination. My mom and dad just believe you're Christian. You believe in Jesus Christ. You believe in
Yeah.
God, whatever. But was raised Christian. I will say, I always said I lived a very unrealistic life growing up. My parents loved each other. They was
Hmm.
always in this honeymoon phase. My dad was always talking about my mom being beautiful and sexy, and he was always like kissing her in front of us. And sometimes we would be in the other room playing, and my mom and dad would go in their room, and it wasn't that, look, calm down, PG-13. It wasn't
Okay.
anything like that.
I was
We would
like,
just
oh
hear my
Lord.
mom screaming in the back room, but it wasn't anything sexual. He was tickling her, and we was
Um,
like, open the door, let us in. What are you doing to mom?
Tickling.
He
We know
was,
what
no, he
that
was.
means.
He was. It was not anything sexual. I can promise
But
you. They would
that's
never.
but that's very happy. Like you grew up in a
Yeah,
happy home.
I was. I was in a very happy home. My mom and dad loved each other. They always communicated. Like when one failed, the other one would pick up. Like when my dad had a heart attack and he, wasn't able to work, my mom went into
Hmm.
the workforce and just picked up where he left off. And she never complained about it.
Hmm.
My dad was the one taking us to school or coming to school if something happened. It was, I always said it was the Disney Channel effect. Like it was
Yeah.
so perfect and it was so amazing to grow up in that environment, that loving environment, and seeing them. There were problems, of course, but like I never saw my parents argue, like ever.
That's good.
But it was damaging because when you start dating in the future, you try to mimic the relationship your parent. Well, for some people, it depends on the person. Like sometimes you see
Yeah.
something bad and you want to avoid that. Well,
Hmm.
I tried to mimic what I saw with my mom and dad. They were loving, they were caring, they communicated, they were God fearing people. They went to church. They didn't judge people ever. If they
Yeah.
saw somebody do something or there was a rumor in town, my mom and dad wouldn't entertain it with us. They would go and talk and gossip with the adults outside and made us stay inside. But, you know,
Yeah.
apart from that, they were great parents in relation to their
Hmm.
in reference to their relationship together and how they communicated. It was like being in a Disney Channel movie and having the perfect parents. And I commend them on showing us how love should be,
Hmm.
even if it was unrealistic to a certain extent. But
Yeah.
I'm
I
grateful for
mean,
that.
that's good. I mean, I get that too. I will say my mom, even now, she said she came up with this analogy herself, but she always said that she thought of my dad like a friend, a best friend, but not in a romantic sense. So that was the downfall of their relationship. They could kind of rely on each other and, be there for the family and do all of those things, but there was no intimacy in
Mm-hmm.
their relationship. And that it can work, and it worked for 19 years for them, but
Mm-hmm.
eventually you're going to want
More.
intimacy. And yeah, you want a partner, like a brother and a friend. That is nice to be in a relationship, but it is not the best fit for a romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a marriage needs to be. It has to be romantic in some aspect, or else it won't work. Or like, I mean, I can't say it won't work, but it takes a lot more to make it work. And so I think that's what they kind of realized towards the end is it was a lot of work and they didn't want to put in that effort at that time.
Okay. Well, so that brings me to my next question in relation to like viewing your parents and seeing the relationship. Just apart from just them having a relationship, do you feel like that watching their relationship potentially like affected your views on what you started, like when you started dating and the relationship that you saw between your parents, did that affect like the first relationship? Like
Yeah.
that's what I'm referring to, not now, but
Hmm.
like because as you date your values start
Yeah.
changing and you start
Changing and
adjusting
everything.
them.
Um, I I remember saying to my first ever boyfriend, like, oh, I don't want to do the things that my parents would do.
Mm,
And I still to this day, I still am like, okay, how can I do the opposite of what my parents did? Like in the way that they raised us, some things I want to take forward, but in their relationship by itself, I'm like, no, I don't want that. Like I want to be able to be transparent. Like financial issues was a very big factor in my parents' original split, and it continued to be an issue. Dishonesty and things like that. And so I think even back in my first relationship, I prioritized first and foremost honesty. And I wanted someone who wanted to like care for me but show me those things. Like I wanted someone who would get me flowers or get me my favorite books, or they hear me talking about something and they take an interest in it too. And I think in my first relationship, he did such a great job at doing that. Like I remember, I think it was on my birthday. He ordered, no, it wasn't my birthday. It was some, I don't know, Valentine's Day. That's what it was. Sorry. I remember he ordered this bouquet. It was candies. So it's like on like these sticks, and then it turns into a whole bouquet with flowers and things like that. It was very beautiful. And so he ordered that for me, and that made me feel like so seen and loved. And
Mm,
um, I was like, wow, this is different than my parents' relationship.
okay. My first relationship, watching my parents, I was very naive to. I just always assumed that when people got together and they really cared about each other, then it's
You
like a
stay.
puzzle. It just
Yeah.
fits. There is no work there's no work needed. It just works, right? And in my first relationship, it was with a girl. I mean, okay.
I think that's why it didn't work.
Okay, first of all, I'm talking about from the period like I loved
hmm
her. I cared for her. I had
hmm
emotional feelings
You
for
just weren't
her.
in love with
Sexual wasn't there. But like I don't think I had sexual attraction towards anybody at that age. I was
her. Yeah.
young. So anyway, um I guess I should talk about my first boyfriend because that's probably more realistic than using a woman
Yeah.
because people will be like, well, you're gay, so you can't really use that. So it was my first boyfriend. I was still very naive. Like
Yeah.
I first of all, I just went into the scenario just being like, we're gonna be happy. We're gonna live the perfect life. There's nothing to worry about. You care about me, I care about you. The only thing that we're
hmm
gonna have to worry about is bills and just the
Yeah.
worldly side of things. And then like we had our first argument and it was about something stupid. And like I'm the type of person where I never saw my parents argue. So my thing was to dismiss anything that came
hmm
up. So like, oh, I didn't like the fact that you did sad thing, and then I would just be like, it's not that big of a deal. Like I care about you,
Right.
so it's not that big of a deal. I ignored red flags, feelings that made me feel uncomfortable, that made me feel like I'm not sure if this is for me because I'm with you and that holds higher power. Like I
Yeah.
never saw my parents argue, like I said, I never saw them have those moments. So I was kind of winging it. I was also kind of self-sabotaging because I felt like, well, this isn't going the way I my parents did it, so something must be wrong. And I see my
Yeah.
brothers and them have relationships prior to before, but I was just like, y'all chose some crazy people. That's on y'all. Like it ain't got nothing to do with me. Our parents raised us
Yeah.
and showed us what was right. Y'all just chose crazy people. But relationships are way more complicated than that. And I realized that. And my parents later on in life had conversations with me as an adult that was just like, oh yeah,
hmm
we didn't agree on this. Maybe we
hmm
should have let y'all see us like have moments where we
Yeah.
communicated correctly and effectively to resolve an issue as opposed to like do it behind closed doors and you only
Yeah.
saw the perfect happy side of us. And it's crazy because
Um,
I would say my parents hid it very well because to this day my brothers and us still say my parents never argued. They were loving and caring. And like even though they admitted that they had stuff behind scenes like in relation to like just disagreements, you know, they still love each other and do romantic shit. Like my mom would be at the
yeah.
house of my dad and be like, Joyce, you looking thick or something. I'm like, oh, stop. Like, why are you using words that are past your generation?
And I think that's is so funny because that's the opposite of my parents. I mean, so I distinctly remember too when I was a little kid. like when your parents would kiss, you go, ew, it's disgusting. And like we were all very young. And of course, it's like a crowd when there's four of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so my parents would just do a little quick peck on the lips to make us go, ew, and, cause a riot. But they weren't very intentional about touch and things like that. And you talking about your parents never arguing in front of you just kind of made me laugh when I thought about my parents actually did argue in front of us. And it definitely was not the right thing to do, but it was kind
Mm-hmm.
of funny because, we're sitting there like, do we laugh? Do we, join in on it? And I remember one time they were arguing and we were going through the McDonald's drive-through. I think we were all getting like ice cream sundaes, in the cups with the hot
Mm-hmm.
fudge. And so my mom orders some for all of us. So she gets six and we start passing them back in the car. And then my dad tells her to hold his. She rolls down the window and throws his out
Oh my
because she
God.
was so pissed at him in that moment. And I remember I was just dying of laughter. And I'm sure that was not a very mature thing to do, but it still makes me laugh to this moment.
I, I mean, but I think that's good though. That was an experience. Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe not good for some people, but
No, he was mad.
okay. I'll say transparency is important when it
It
comes
is,
to
but
raising a
like you
kid.
said, it needs to be positive and very adult like.
Yeah.
If you're just yelling and arguing and throwing things in front of your kids, it's always going to cause some type of trauma. And I think if you calmly discuss and have those arguments, it's very mature, and that's how they know how to have discussions with other people in their life when they grow up.
No, that's
But
true.
yeah, I was like, but also it just depends on how you communicate. And I think my parents also, because they did kind of argue more, but it didn't always escalate to the point to where she's throwing the ice cream. That was just like one specific time. But I think that they would kind of argue a lot, but they were kind of good about getting their point across. And I think that a positive way it affected me is that it let me learn how to get my point across in a disagreement. And I think I learned that skill pretty well. Like I can state my points and how I'm feeling and properly articulate that to someone.
Hmm.
And usually there's a really good understanding about that. And so maybe I got that from them in all their arguments.
Oh wow. Well, I think Dang, you just had me. I think I had a realization. I'm really bad at people talking down to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
my parents never really did it. I never saw my parents talk down to each other. But even to this day, if if I'm talking to Justin or we get in an argument or have like some type of disagreement, like I'm not putting my business out there. But when you're in a heated moment, you can say things to people. And
Yeah.
one thing I try not to do, I'm not perfect, but one thing I try not to do is take a moment that happens and throws it in someone's face. And I've seen that happen in a lot of relationships, not my parents, but like my brothers, my brother's relationship and when they're dating. And like sometimes he'll say something to me and I'll step back and I'll be like, I don't think that's the best way to communicate. I don't think that's the best way. Like I told you that or that happened
Yeah.
and you're never supposed to use something that happens in a relationship, to prove a point, yes, but not use it as ammunition to kind of like
Mm-hmm.
get under someone's skin. And a lot of times, even with me, when I am in scenarios, I can't. Sometimes I have issues articulating my feelings because I'm an emotional person and I feel
Yeah.
emotions very, very strongly. So sometimes I need to take a break and step away and process those emotions
Mm-hmm.
before I communicate them because I'm over when I'm overwhelmed with emotions, I cannot sometimes deliver the information or what I'm feeling in the best way. And it's not like I'm angry and I say something mean, which it can be the case, but usually it's just like I listen to what people say when I'm talking to them. And if you say something to me that I gave you information for that's hurtful and you use it in a spiteful way,
Yeah.
then I shut down and I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't want to communicate right now because you're doing things that's kind of like making me feel like you're attacking me. And
Yeah, I call that like hitting below the belt when you're
yeah,
it's like a heavyweight fight. And so I definitely think I used to do that a lot more. Like in my beginning relationships, I would kind of bring up that old thing, or it's something that I probably should not be using in the argument. And it always led to even bigger argument because then they get mad and they feel attacked. And so now I'm very conscious about that. And I try not to bring in things that I know people are sensitive about,
mm-hmm.
unless I'm trying to purposely be hurtful. But I think when you're talking in a relationship, you have to be very mindful of that. And you are supposed to love this person. And so you wouldn't want to purposefully hurt the person that you love.
Yeah. Or even just throw stuff back into their face to make them to prove a point,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not a when you're in a relationship with someone, it's not always about one upping people. And I saw that with my parents' relationship. Sometimes my dad would say something to my mom, and then my mom would like sit there. I could see she's like thinking, but my mom doesn't really have an angry face. I've never seen it. Um, and then they would step away and have a conversation. I didn't know what the conversation was about because they didn't really do it in front of us. So even now in my current relationships or past relationships, like people that want to like come at me immediately and be like, let's have this conversation, let's hash it out. I'm
Hmm.
like, I need to step back and process what I'm feeling. Sorry, I'm just
But
drawing.
no, well, this makes me wonder too. But so if your parents didn't really argue and fight and things like that, how would they go about disciplining you and your brothers? Like,
Mm,
were they always at calm level or did they kind of
okay.
pop off with you guys?
All right, listen. Before I say this, I want to make sure that it's understood. I love my parents. I grew up in a different time. You know, back then people beat their kids,
Hmm.
and my mom was very, what is it? Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Hmm.
So we got beatings. My mom would be upset and show disappointment in her face with us.
Hmm.
And but she would still like show us love, and she wouldn't hold on to things that would happen. She would always just be like, if you did something bad, I'm gonna get you. Like I'm gonna get you for old and new, like for the old things you did and new things. So she wouldn't like beat us
Damn.
immediately for doing stuff. She would
Oh,
like
okay.
delay it and then
Oh,
like
that's
let it build up.
terrible.
Okay, first of
That's
all,
terrible.
again, different times. It made me so much.
She would be waiting until she got mad at your dad. Then she like, okay, come
No,
in here
no,
and
no,
get
no,
this
no,
woman.
no, no, no. She would not. She wouldn't. To be clear, she would not take a moment that happened with my dad and be like, "Oh, I'm mad at you kids for doing this, so I'm going to beat
Hmm.
you." I mean, emotions overlap, but I don't think
Yeah.
that was her intentions. Usually, we would do better. She had 6 kids.
Hmm.
You know, four
Y'all was
boys,
cutting
two
up.
girls. We was always into something, breaking something. Going doing stuff we're not supposed to. So to answer your question, my mom showed us like tough love. She showed us that she loved us even through like discipline. It wasn't like, oh,
Hmm.
go sit in the corner. It was like, oh, my mom gonna be mad, but I'm gonna just say this. Um, One time we went outside and we were playing in the mud, and she told us not to
Hmm.
play in the mud, and she told us to come in the house. And all four boys, as we walked through the front door, as she held the screen door open, we knew what was happening. We knew there was a switch behind her back, but we was just like, she's our mom. We have to go in the house. We could stay outside our entire lives. So we went into the house, and as each one of us went into the house, she would hit us, with the switch. And my brother Sam, he's the one I kind of share the middle with,
Yeah.
because it's 6 kids. So, but
Hmm.
anyway, he decided to take off running. Now my mom had 6 kids, so she's her body is she was still able to get around. She chased him around that circle. It was a dead end
Hmm.
road and it was a circle, and he ran around it, and she chased behind him with a switch, beating him. And
Hmm.
I'm really paying my mom. My mom is not. My mom is the most loving, caring person in the world. But when it came to disciplining her kids, she
She was
didn't want
very.
us to go down a road that was
Hmm.
necessarily really, bad or fighting against the law, kicking against the system. Like she was very much follow the rules that are set, and if you break those rules, these are the consequences. So
Yeah.
there's, consequences for actions that you take. So,
I mean, I
but
get that. My parents, they also whooped us, and I'm even younger than you, but it was not with the switch, thankfully. But it was with a belt, which I actually think might be worse.
yeah.
But my parents were very intentional because they also went to church, and they spoil the child, spare the rod, or whatever the saying was. They definitely believed in that. But they also wanted to make sure we knew that we were not being abused. I don't know if that's just because we didn't come from an
Adopted.
abusive home, but I think maybe she was a little worried about it. And when we did actually get adopted, so you have to go through like a year of foster care, um, and you legally cannot hit the children when you're in that
Oh
time.
wow.
And so then after we got adopted, she's like, okay, well, we are gonna start whooping you guys, but we're gonna do it in a better way. So every time we had to get a whooping, like I don't know, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something we would do. Like we would destroy the whole house, break our toys or something. My mom would sit us down, tell us exactly what we did. Like first she would ask us, "Do you know what you did?" And we would
Mm-hmm.
have to kind of mumble or be like, "I don't know." She's like, "Okay, well I'm gonna tell you. This is what you did. This is why it's wrong. Do better next time." And they would be like, "How many licks do you think you deserve for this?" So they ask us, "How many times do they think they should hit us?" And we'd be like, "One, maybe two."
Oh my God.
If you say a low number, it's gonna get even higher. So
Yeah.
you're like five, and they were like, "Okay, we're gonna do eight."
Oh
And
my
yeah,
God.
then we would have to count them out, which is a little wrong, but it did work, I think. I
Hmm.
think sometimes whipping your children can be beneficial, but then sometimes I also think it is not. Like one time I got whooped because I lost my glasses.
Wait,
And that was,
what?
yeah, she was mad because she did have to pay for them out of pocket, but still, I can't help that. Like
Yeah.
I had left them on my desk and the janitor came by and took them to Lost and Found and I didn't know. And I was like, I had them and I took them off at the playground and then they disappeared.
Hmm.
So I think in a way, if I have a kid, I think if I do end up whooping my child, which I go back and forth on, I definitely think I will use the talking with them method because it really does make it so that you both kind of understand why you're there. And um, having a set number also makes it so that my mom or dad wouldn't um, take their anger out from the situation on us. Like it wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to keep hitting you until I'm not mad anymore. It was,
Hmm.
you did something wrong. This is the punishment. And so that kind of made a lot of sense in my mind, I think. Whereas I think if we just, I know some people got surprise whoopings, like what you just explained,
Hmm.
that would piss me all the way off. I would be so mad.
Yeah, it was interesting. I would say I would use a combination of both methods. I would
Hmm.
use talking methods as well as maybe beating,
Hmm.
because I don't know how to explain it. But like, I mean, clearly I don't get beatings now, and I don't
Yeah.
like it stopped after I got into my teenage years. I would say,
Hmm.
I would say right around like 18,
Yeah.
basically when I got out of like high
When
school.
it became an adult, then they're like,
Yes.
okay, you're good now.
So I think I do a combination of both. I would definitely do more at the younger years. I would do more
Hmm.
talking because first of all, they don't know
Yeah.
English. They're learning how to communicate. They're learning their body,
And their
and then
emotions, most
eventually,
importantly.
yeah, I would have those conversations. And I don't like when parents talk down to kids or talk to them like, I think it's a combination of, and this again, this is my perspective and for me only, not like I'm a therapist and I can tell anybody anything. But for me, I think having communication and talking to your kid on an even playing field, not down, not making them feel like they're a child, but just having
Hmm.
conversation with them. I see it all the time. Parents will be like, "Do you know what you did?"
Yeah.
No, it needs to be, "All right, let's sit down. I want to talk to you about something. Do you recall this happening? That was inappropriate or that was not
Hmm.
right. We don't believe in that. Some people might
Right.
do that, but that's not something we do. Now, if you want to do that later in your life, we'll have that conversation. But right now, when you're under my roof and I'm taking care of you and I'm trying to raise you to be the best version of whatever it is that you want to be when you grow up, we need to have these conversations. I need you to be able to talk to me. And I feel like that's why a lot of kids don't communicate with their parents and they have secrets. I mean, you have secrets in general, but like I think some kids are vindictive with it because they
Yeah.
know the repercussions and how their parents are going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to
Yeah,
beat you."
they don't see their parents as like a trusted
Mm-hmm.
adult. And I don't know. For me, growing up, my mom was definitely a trusted person, and I think one, if you have children, you want to be that person for them. So, my mom would personally say like, "Oh, I'm not one of your little friends." I think a lot of Black moms say that, but she really did want to be included in those things. And when I was younger, it was easy to go with her to her like with any real issues. But as I got older, I wouldn't go to her much anymore. I would go to my sisters, and it helped that we were all around the same age. So we could talk about anything and kind of try to learn. I'm not going to say we all give the best advice, but
Mm-hmm.
they became my trusted people. And I don't know. I think sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. But in our family, we would kind of think of it as like the pyramid of secrets.
Mm-hmm.
So like with us siblings, we could tell each other these things that you definitely cannot tell your parents because you will definitely get in trouble. But we all knew each other's secrets, and something that was worse, like, oh, she knows exactly what I did on this day, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell on her because she'll tell on me, and then the
Yeah.
whole thing will collapse. And I think once my parents divorced, that pyramid of lies and, secrets, it collapsed.
Oh
So
God.
then both parents were kind of knowing a lot of the things that had been
Mm.
happening all the years. And I think that created an even bigger mess
Oh my
at the
God.
end.
That sounds messy.
It was messy,
And you
but I
probably
was
was the one
glad.
telling everybody business.
Oh no, I was trying to stay out of it as much
Oh.
as possible. And it helped that I was at college. So I was like,
Mm.
I personally, y'all can tell on me. I'm 18. But the other two, they were still at home because they were
Mm.
only 16 and 17. So I was like, y'all need to be careful at telling them secrets. She could still whoop you.
You know, just out of curiosity, do you think there's a theory out there that like the center of every person walks around and they are the center of their universe. You cannot
Hmm.
experience life through anyone else's eyes. You can sympathize with someone you might see homeless, you might sympathize with your sibling having a secret and not wanting to tell your parents. But
Yeah,
ultimately, we live life through our perspective and we are the center of our universe. Everybody else is just an NPC or like, they're an external
playing a
factor.
part in
Yeah,
it.
they're playing
Yeah.
a part in it, but they're not you. So there's
Hmm.
this experience. So you think that plays into like how you view your parents as well as to like even with your siblings and keeping secrets. Like it's easy for us to like just be like, well, I can only focus on me because I'm me. Like I'm
Yeah.
living my life. I know my emotions. The only thing I know for certain, 100%, is everything that I feel, experience, and live, and everything else is just subjectively someone else's opinion. So
Hmm.
there's that disconnect. And do you feel like growing up, watching your parents' relationship, experiencing the divorce and having siblings, do you think sometimes you ever like retreated back into yourself and kind of like just looked at it from a myself perspective as opposed to like, because that happened to me a lot after I got
Hmm.
outed by the pastor. I became very quiet. I became to
Yeah.
myself, and I was just like, I was a teenager, but I was just kind of like my whole world collapsed when I was outed in front of like all of my family and church members.
Yeah.
So I just receded into myself and became more of a thinker internally.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think so because I distinctly remember being told that my parents are going to get a divorce and about the whole affair and all of it all. Like I was I was in my dorm room. It was like a Saturday, I think it was a Sunday morning actually. And my sister had tried to call me, but I didn't answer because I was in the shower. And so like right when I got out, I called her back and she's like, "Hey, I only have 2 minutes to talk because I'm taking the dog out. They're getting a divorce, and mama is about to go and be with this new woman. And I said, excuse me, a woman?
Mm.
And she's like, yeah, that's all I know. And they're about to have a really big conversation because I guess they had sat them all down since they were at home and talked to them. And in that moment, it was like, holy shit, my world kind of exploded.
Mm.
I didn't know what to think. Then they called me and they were crying and asking me how I felt. And I really didn't know. I kind of like shut down, and I think I retreated, but more into my relationship, which was very toxic.
Mm.
And so like I was just like, okay, if I can't get happiness from my family, I'm just gonna get it from this other person. And I did that for a while until we broke up, and then I met the toxic ex, the one that
Mm.
ended up lasting for 4 years. And he saw me through a lot of the divorce and the proceedings. So he saw how that affected me. And I think the more chaos that was happening in my family, the more I was just like, I want to distance myself. And so I'm going to distance myself into you. And so I
Mm.
became very self focused, and I wasn't trying to understand the feelings of my family and how this all was happening. I was just like, shit is happening to me from all different sides. I cannot even try to think about how everyone else is feeling. I was very
Yeah.
much like, I need to kind of focus on me right now, which
Wow.
isn't good. And, I think in some ways it hurt at least my sibling that I still talk to. I think it hurt her feelings a little bit because it seemed like I didn't want to be around her or them. And I was just like, it's too much. It's overwhelming. So I don't really want to be around. It's not you personally. It's just the whole situation and the whole drama and all of that that goes into it.
No, I
Divorces are messy for everyone.
no, I mean, my brother went through a divorce, and I won't put anybody's business out there. I'll just say that this just loops back to kids know a lot more than parents think they do. I just
Yeah.
remember riding down the road with my nephew, and they said something like, I don't know if they were divorced yet or they were like just separated. And I remember the kids being like, um, it's about time. I thought they would have got a divorce a long time ago. And I was
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? I was like, so, oh no, this happened all the time. This happened, and we just didn't
Hmm.
understand. And I just remember being like, see, that just goes back to like, you underestimate kids' perception to pick up on
Yeah.
cues, even when they are not as educated or have as much
Don't
lived
understand the
experience as
complexities
you.
of adults.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think as humans, I think even babies who know nothing, no
Mm-hmm.
any language, they even experience trauma and they can tell the difference. Like their body reacts differently. Babies who grow up in a family where the adults are always yelling and screaming and fighting at each other, it ingrains in you. And
Mm-hmm.
when you grow up, even if, something happens and that situation is no longer, it still affected you, even as small as 6 months old. And I think it really does affect how you are. If you grow up in a happy home that's all the time, you expect that from people. And so when it turns to the fighting, you're like very shocked, thrown off
Yeah.
guard. And then when people grow up in a home where people are always fighting and there's always some argument or loudness, I think when they grow up, they try to escape that, and or sometimes they try to replicate that in their relationships because that's how they feel regulated, but it's not true regulation. It's toxic, but they don't understand that they've been living in the toxic so long they don't know
Mm-hmm.
what normal is.
That's true, and it could be a double. It could go two ways. I feel like there's just two paths that you can take. There are some people like you that grew up in a household where there's arguing and fighting, and then instead of you being like, "Oh, I'm just gonna argue and fight with every partner that I have," they'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
or then there's other people who's just like, "Oh, I don't want to argue and fight." They recede. They go into like a quiet state because they don't want to argue and fight. They saw it growing up and they saw how it
Yeah.
damages things. So there's like multiple paths people can take when they develop, when they experience things. And I just feel like, from my perspective, seeing so much love, seeing so much care, I just went into every relationship thinking things just fit and work, and that's how life works. even though I saw
Hmm.
my uncles, like I saw my uncles have bad relationships or divorces or fighting with their significant others, it was always be like, but that's an outside source. That's just, that won't happen to me. That's them. I'm a
Hmm.
product of my mom and my dad. So, but that's the thing. You can't control the other person you're dating.
Yeah.
So all you can control is yourself, and that's like fearful for some people. Like
Hmm.
I don't know what you're really thinking. You could be telling me anything. Um, but anyway, getting off topic a little bit, back to family values and stuff. I don't know. I think my parents, till this day, it scares me how how much I value my parents' opinions. Like their
Hmm.
relationship is one thing, but like till this very day, I told my mom I told my mom before, I was just like, hey, signing a prenup, getting a prenup, and my mom was
Hmm.
like, she was quiet. And when your parents get quiet when you tell them something, it's usually like, oh, they disagree immediately, and
Yeah,
they're
they're
not saying
judging a
anything.
little
They're
bit.
just the wheels are turning in their head how they can say something without offending you and pushing you away, but giving you the information that they want you to know. My
Hmm.
mom was just like, a prenup, isn't it just like a safety net because they don't think it's gonna work? And they're from a different time. Getting
Yeah.
divorced back in the '60s and '70s was just like, you don't do it. You stick in there and you ride it out until the end.
Hmm.
Nowadays, getting divorced is just very common. It's like being divorced. Marriage nowadays is just treated so much more like, oh, I'm not happy, let me leave.
Yeah. We're less likely, I mean, not we're, but now it seems less likely that people want to work it out. They're like, why try to stick through this? It's not going to
Hmm.
work. I'm going to go.
And
But
yeah, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, I was like, and I think that's so interesting. I mean, I do value my mom's opinion, but it never was like the driving force, which
Hmm.
I do think is interesting. I think when I was little, it did, but once I became like 16, 14, between the ages of 14 and 16, it stopped holding as much weight over me. And I would always like watch movies and TV shows, and the parents would say, I'm so disappointed in you. And the person would break down so they felt so many emotions. They never wanted their parents to be disappointed in them. And I remember my dad said that to my sister one time, and she broke down crying. And I was like, that's so weird. Because if he said that to me,
Hmm.
I literally would not care. I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm weird or not for that, but I was like, if someone says they're disappointed in me, that seems like a you problem. And
Hmm.
that seems very cold, but I think as long as because I became so individualized, and I think during my teen years I retreated back into myself. I think I stopped letting my family's opinion of me hold me back. I mean, I
Hmm.
I held other people's opinion of me because that's where my anxiety stems from. I held their opinions at a greater value than my family's, if that makes sense. Which
Yeah.
it kind of doesn't, but my family didn't really give me anxiety. Being around my family, I was just like, I'm gonna be me, and you kind of have to accept it. But everyone else in the world, they don't have to accept it, and they can judge me, and that scares me.
Yeah.
So my parents saying they were disappointed in me, that's just, oh no, I'll do better next time, but
Mm.
it's not gonna really hurt me as much
Well,
as if maybe if Armin said he was disappointed in me, I think I might
uh,
feel a little sad.
that makes sense. I don't think I've always been headstrong, an
Yeah.
individual. Like my mom and dad would be like, "Oh, Dante," because that's what they call me. They'd be like, "Oh, Dante, he gonna do what he want to do. He his own person." Like, and I mean, I'm gay. My parents are
Yeah.
Christian, and like they clearly. I know my dad. My dad cares. My mom
Hmm.
probably cares more. She's more vocal. My grandmother more vocal. Aunts, like one time I went to this my grandmother's 80 something birthday surprise dinner,
Hmm.
and I had took my then partner to the dinner, and I didn't introduce him as my significant other. I just said, "Hey, this is my friend." Da da da.
Hmm.
Sat down. My aunt, like there are certain Christian old ladies that love to push the envelope.
Hmm.
they're looking for a moment to where they can save your soul. So
Yeah.
they want you to feed them information. And she came to the table and she looked at me and she was like, "How do you know him?" And I was like, "Oh, he's a friend." A friend? What kind of friend? And I was like, "It's not a big deal." And then she was just like, "He is." She was like, and then she just asked again and again. And eventually I was like, "We're together. We're dating.
Yeah.
He's my partner." And she looked at me and she was just like, "But you was raised in the church." Let me tell you something. In that moment, I love my family. I love all my cousins. I love all my, like, I won't say anything, but I'll do things and I'll always greet people with kindness and love, regardless of
Hmm.
when they show up. But when she said that, I instantly went into defense mode. You can do certain
Yeah.
things for me that make me drop you as a family member in that moment, and then I'm just gonna correct you. Because what I was about to do was about to tell her to take her old raggedy ass to her table and shut the fuck up before I punch her in her fucking face. And that's how
Oh
I
my
felt in the
God.
moment. But I didn't
Hmm.
say that. My cousin stood up. God knew what was happening because my cousin stood up and said, "We're not gonna do this here." And she like escorted
Hmm.
her to her chair. And it's just like one thing I will never do is I will never put anybody else's beliefs or feelings on a topic if I'm not hurting you or doing anything to like take away your
Right.
rights. Your opinion don't matter to me. And if you're gonna approach me and push your agenda on me, I'll listen to it. But if you're disrespectful with it, then I'll be just as disrespectful. I don't care how old you are. You
Hmm.
could be 150, you could be 200 years old. I'll still break your kneecaps and bury you 3 feet in the ground. But I probably shouldn't say that because I would
It's
never
very
kill
aggressive.
anybody. It's just it is very aggressive. I just get very heated thinking back to that moment because who was she to give like have that entitlement to try to you know dig into my relationship and my connection with a
Right.
person and then try to judge me on it in an environment where we're supposed to be celebrating the person of the moment, but you're making this moment
Hmm.
about you and how you can save a soul. Best believe when I stand before God, if I die and when I die, then I'll have that conversation. And I've had
With him.
conversations with my mom about not just talking about sexuality, but just about my individuality and watching my parents grow up. My dad stood strong that he loved my mom. Like if
Yeah.
someone approached her, he chased them in. Anyway, my dad was just adamant when he's in love with my mom, if somebody disrespect my mom, he's not gonna let it happen. He's not gonna settle for it. So if I feel like the person I'm talking to is disrespected by someone, family member or not, I'm gonna correct them, and I will
Yeah.
always be who I am. You don't have to like me. You don't have to agree with the things that I do, but you will not disrespect. You can disrespect me, but you will not disrespect
Disrespect my partner.
my partner or the relationship that we have. Period.
Hmm.
So anyway, I didn't mean to go into
And
that
that's how you
rant.
ended. I was like, we don't even have to say anything else. Just period.
So, but anyway, I mean, we are coming up close to almost an hour. And
Hmm.
this is just part one. I don't want anybody to think like, oh, we're just going to be dead and done. We went over these topics and we discussed everything. It was like, oh, this is like a three-part series. We can go into relationships with brothers and sisters and how that
Hmm.
developed. And this will probably be like the next three podcasts is family values and how you can take something like watching your parents and the love or lack of love that they have and that develops you as a person and your
Hmm.
own values with connections you have with people or just connections in general and you as a person how you develop. So
Yeah.
Amaya, I talked a lot, so how do you feel about the topic?
I think it's good. I have a lot to say. I mean, growing up in a big family and everyone's opinions and then later on having the whole divorce, I have so much to say on family.
Mm. So I think this is a good moment to say something right now about because this first podcast was about parents, family value in general, and then of course how we viewed our parents and how that affected us. Is if you were, what would you say to your younger self if you could like
In
sit down
regards,
in regards to like
it,
your parents and like the love and what they might experience like beforehand.
uh, I really don't know. I think I would say maybe. Hmm. I don't know.
I
That's
caught
really
you off guard with
hard.
that one.
You did.
Well, let me go first.
That's a
Let me go
hard
first
question.
then. Let you think about it
Yes.
and I'll go first. Okay. So if I could look back on my younger self and I could sit down with him at 37 years old and I'm sitting down with my younger self and of age and sound mind to understand what I'm talking about, I would say you're going to live in a household where you're going to have unconditional love. You're going to have parents who seem perfect and love each other. And I just want you to embrace it, accept it for
Hmm.
what it was and what it is. And just be mindful that just like your relationship with your dad is different than your relationship with your mom, is different than a relationship with
Hmm.
your siblings individually. Look at your parents' relationship, appreciate it, but don't try to mimic it to a T.
Hmm.
You know, use that as a foundation to build your values, but do not let it be like, don't let it build your house. You can have it as a foundation and say, hey, I want love. My mom and dad always told me, this is me still talking to my younger self. My mom and dad always told me, be careful what you pray and ask God for. You need to be very specific and detailed about the partner you pray for because God will give you and deliver you exactly what you ask for. So if you ask for a man that got money, that's going to value you and love you, and, you know, and good looking, God will give you that, but that person might have other flaws that you didn't put in those details. They might be
Hmm.
consumed with work. They might have anger issues. They might
Yeah.
be a perfectionist. You know, so value your parents' relationship, use it as a foundation, but build the house that you want to live in.
Yeah.
You go.
Hmm. Okay. I would say, uh, don't don't let them don't let them make you pick a side, because I think in the divorce that was a really big issue. Like, well, my mom, she was just kind of like, I hurt everyone and I deserve to be punished. But my dad was very adamant about us picking a side.
Mm,
And I just knew that was wrong. And I think about, that story in the Bible where the two parents wanted that child. And I think they said, just cut the child in half and then you both can get a piece of him. But the parent who actually loves you will say, no, I don't want any harm to come to my child. You can have them. And I
mm,
think my mom doing that just showed me, like, she's like, I understand if you need to go and, have that relationship with your father and do that. And my dad's like, no, you need to be cut in half, basically. I don't know if that makes sense,
mm.
but
No, it
I
does.
think, yeah, I was like, I just think that him trying to force us to kind of cut our mom off was the incorrect thing to do, because we had separate relationships with each of them. And I can't, I was gonna say I couldn't imagine not having that, but then it ended up I didn't end up having a relationship with him because of that, though. And I think if he had chose to understand that we would have different relationships with them, I think we it could have gone pretty well. So I wish that he would have made a different choice.
Oh, well, you turned out perfect regardless. So
Yeah.
slightly perfect, a little flawed in some areas, but perfect nonetheless.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, well, I want to thank you guys for listening to the podcast on family. We're definitely going to do more. We're definitely going to have more
Hmm.
in depth, and maybe the next episode will be about siblings and what you grew up experiencing with them and that relationship. It's a family affair. What can I say? We're going to have a lot more topics. And Amaya, I want to thank you for just jumping in here and being so open about your experience being
Of
adopted
course.
and dealing with divorce in the family, because that's a sensitive topic for some people. So I want to
Hmm.
thank you for that.
Yeah. And, to anyone listening, if you're going through family struggles or you have in the past, just let it be something that helped you grow. Don't let it be something that holds you back.
Mm, agreed. Well, make sure you vote. That
Yes.
is important. We are a family here in America, and some from afar,
Hmm.
still family and American
Yep. If you're
citizen.
abroad, go ahead and vote too if you can.
It's very important. So I want to thank you guys for listening on this conversation of family values, we'll do a part two and we'll make sure we get it out to you as soon as possible. Thank you. Bye. You gonna say bye, Maya?
Oh, bye.
Oh my God.
I thought you were
Bye.
signing off. You did so well.